Welcome to Therapist Uncensored. Building on decades of professional experience, this podcast tackles neurobiology, modern attachment, and more in an honest way that's helpful in healing humans. Your session begins now with Dr. Ann Kelly and Sue Marriott.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Therapist Uncensored. I'm Ann Kelly.
And I'm Sue Marriott.
And we are here with a guest who is pretty special to us because we are here with Michael Hilgers, and he is a therapist who now lives in New Mexico. And I can tell you, he's a very dear friend. And we've been having really important conversations with you, Michael, and we've decided that today is a time to really have these on air.
Right. The reason that we invited you on is because you're a straight white dude.
That was going to be my intro. You stole it.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. Well, actually, please do. Describe yourself.
My name is Mike Hilgers, and I am a straight white dude. And that's a confusing thing to be right now. Not to take anything away from folks that are not as privileged as I am, but it's confusing. So,
what's confusing about it?
I think where to be in all of this. There's a part of me that just wants to be really, really small because there's so many people that look like me that are really big right now. And so, I think when I equate small, I think safe and just kind of there, not overpowering or engulfing anyone. So I think there's that part of me. There's another part of me that feels very responsible and feels like people like me need to be seen right now. And so just that part's confusing of how big or how small to be in the world right now.
Yeah, and it can be dangerous, I imagine, with other men. If you go small in this climate, that's where you get mockery or you get, this sadistic, weakness, those kinds of things, which is part of why I think that we have a lot of people on their tiptoes and with their chest out. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that doesn't resonate as much with me. I think I'm the guys that I surround myself with are pretty safe to be big or small with. But yeah, I can certainly see another context that would be a thing.
Well, and just to put this entire conversation in context, because we are going to be playing this on the Friday after the presidential election, but people may be tuning in at any point in time. And so this conversation is happening right after probably the most intense, at least in recent history, presidential election where feelings are flying all over the place. And it's a tough time right now. And a lot of division, and that's part of our conversation, right? Is this our goal in this process is not to intensify division and take sides. It's to be able to have these really hard conversations so that we can see each other in a more, I don't know if it's not clear. What is it? What's the way that we're shooting for?
Well, I think we're going for more nuance.
Nuanced, yeah.
And getting out of this binary, out of getting, X's and O's and those sorts of things. We also published an episode right before the election where we were earnestly calling for just a lot of care and, again, a lot of nuance. And we called for, wisdom, like holding on to your secure mind and your whole mind, and calling for compassion and wisdom. And then the election happened. And I understand that people listening will have had a whole range of responses. So we're not speaking to, everybody out there, but there certainly is a group that feel gutted, shocked, surprised, harmed. And on the other side of that, there's people that are close to them that don't get it and they don't understand. And it looks like a really ridiculous overreaction or a lot of drama. So part of what Mike's going to be talking to us about is how he is approaching this and kind of bringing in, just widening our perspective as we talk about how to get our secure minds back on. So what are your thoughts initially? Like, what are you noticing from your side? And what do you find yourself telling people?
From your side as a therapist as well,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're 36 hours out, right? Like, it may seem like a month, but it has literally only been a day and a half. And so I think from the folks that I talk to, and I talk to a wide range of folks as clients, but, obviously, I mean, people are just a lot of people are shocked. A lot of people are not shocked, but still the reality of it, I think, is really a lot of just like, oh, what's this going to be now? What is this going to look like? I mean, there's so many things to be concerned about, and we don't even know what's real. And so I think that's a big part of what's confusing, is that there's just so many things being thrown around as possibilities. It just keeps everybody's just activated. Everybody's just in that state of 5 Fs, or fight, flight, fawn. I don't know the other two. So I think there's those folks, and then a lot of the folks that I talk with are male partners, husbands, boyfriends. A lot of them look like me.
And to be honest, we hold you guys responsible. I mean, it might not be fair, but when we're seeing numbers,
yeah.
So it's really hard. When you say looks like me, it's like you absolutely are going to be an object of projection.
And that's the part of me that wants to go small, right? It's just kind of like, oh God, like, don't see me right now.
I'm friendly.
Exactly. But I think for a lot of the guys in particular that I'm talking about that are in that kind of situation, they have a lot of compassion. They have a lot of empathy, but their approach, I think, is really missing the mark. A lot of my conversations yesterday were guys who seem to be completely caught off guard by how angry their partners are with them, and how they've approached it, because a lot of them are leading with, they want to fix it. They want to fix the problem, the immediate problem right in front of them. They don't want to feel the distress of their partner being in distress. And so, a lot of like, it's going to be okay. Or even a lot of really getting into the details, the content of the concern of like, oh, if that happens, we will fly immediately to New Mexico because it's a blue state, to get medical care. A lot of solution kind of problem solving kind of stuff. And they're totally missing an opportunity to really connect with their partner on a deep level and just to sit in it with them. I think so many of them are just uncomfortable by the discomfort, that it's like, how do we get out of here as quick as possible? Let me pull you over to the place where like it's okay. And I keep saying that phrase okay. And I think for me, like, that's my default mode. Like, anything goes wrong in life, like I'm immediately gonna I'm immediately gonna lead with, it's gonna be okay. And I think, for particularly coming from somebody that looks like me, like, that's not the right answer right now, because
it's okay for you.
Exactly. If I'm in a vacuum, I don't know if this is naive or not, but like, I'm probably okay. But for a whole lot of people out there, I don't know that it's going to be okay.
And I think it's important that we are not sitting here talking about it's not going to be okay because the administration went Republican, right? Like, I think there are people who voted Republican who also feel a sense of threat about what's going on. So I don't think it is just, when you mentioned, like, if we're talking to both partners who happen to agree that this is a threatening situation, there's one way to help them connect. And then there's those that split and they're dismissing about it. And I think that's an important part of this dialogue, is I think some people don't understand or are being a bit disparaging, actually on both sides of the equation, but about the deep feelings of fear. And I think we are in a situation that is new, where we have put somebody in office who has openly made some pretty scary derogatory comments, where whether we take them seriously or not is, we've all heard them. I don't think anybody disagrees that he's made, well, maybe some, but it made very disparaging and racist comments, and very gender disparaging comments, and is actually been prosecuted, and found guilty for sexual impropriety. So it is, having that person in charge is a painful, scary thought that is part of this conversation. So it's really important that this is not just because we're talking about a Republican. And again, many Republicans that feel that fear too. So I like what you're saying. We can't just say it's fine, don't worry about it, we'll fix it. But there's also what happens when somebody's also saying you're being ridiculous. Like there's not really a problem. He's just kidding. Or, how do you help in that regard?
But I also like, Anna, just since you brought up that this is real, if we could just stay here for just a minute before we go back to the other side for a second, that when you're saying this is real, again, not everybody experienced it this way.
Well, true. That's a really good point.
But there's a lot of people that, that this doesn't feel like a figment of their imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And that are truly, when we begin to tick off the different policies, and people are fired up for different reasons, whether it be the destruction of the fear of destruction of the planet and erosion of climate, interventions, or immigration, or
reproductive rights,
all queer, gender, all the things where that it's highly, highly, highly personal. And I remember someone telling my mother actually said to me at one point, yeah, I'm voting that way, but it's not personal. It's not personal to you. It's not like I don't love you, Sue, and love your marriage and love your children. I just think blah, 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 blah. So I think if we can articulate a little bit about why that falls so short and why that hurts to hear, that folks that are actually, and again, there's a lot of people that don't give a crap and will just make fun of us. We've been called lots of names recently from our last podcast. But the people that do that, are salvageable in the sense of that they want to be part of the solution and part of working towards healing this divide. Again, forget your politics. We don't even care about that right now. We're talking about human bodies co-regulating one another. For those folks, do either of y'all want to say anything about why something like that, like, oh, it's not personal, could fall so flat or even be hurtful to the person that's harmed or the person that feels harmed or scared?
My pause, I was really thinking through that, but I think part of it is just because it's just blatantly untrue. Like it totally misses their humanity. I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, whether you think it or not, please don't say that. There's just so many things. I had so many conversations yesterday of like, I feel like I know where you're coming from, but like, never let those words leave your mouth again, except for in this
like
conversation.
What are some of the words that shouldn't leave your mouth?
I mean, I think anything that seeks to comfort the other person by discounting or trying to diminish what people are responding to, like,
oh, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, and
you're overreacting.
Yeah, I forget what the comments were, but like, put on your big pants or whatever it was, or I mean, some are more harsh than others, but
snowflakes was one.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
snowflakes and crybabies. The idea that
it's an intent to humiliate.
Yeah, the intent to humiliate is personal, especially if you're at the other end of that, whomever that may be, and it's painful and it's hurtful and it's activating.
Well, it's trying to force them out of their pain, right? And that can look a lot of different ways. I mean, it can be as harsh as some of those comments, or as well-meaning as it's going to be okay, and let me give you the 5 reasons why. I mean, all of those are just an attempt to really pull somebody out of their pain, and it just doesn't work. What do you do when you're being pulled? You dig in, even deeper. And it just, for me, in the conversations, most of the conversations I had yesterday, it was just like, they're trying so hard, but missing the mark, to just really, really, this could be in such a challenging time for so many people, like this could be such an opportunity to connect.
And what would that look like if they did it right? What would that look like?
I mean, just all the co-regulation stuff, right? I mean, leading with empathy, like, of course you feel this way. Like, of course it's scary. And once you think you've hit the mark with empathy, like, do it 3 more times. Like, you can't overdo it, I think, right now.
Would you also say, Michael, to be able to get there, like, not rushing, like taking a moment, like you said earlier, it's like, how does that person really feel? It's really hard to know if you've never experienced that kind of derogatory statement directed at you, right? I think that's part of what is happening, for cis white men. You're hearing a lot of derogatory statements that is new, and it's painful, and it's not right. It's not right for it to be flung back at you, right? But to imagine being of a different color here, being an immigrant, being a woman, and to imagine the experience will add to the empathy and the compassion, because I think it can be, you can say the right words, but if you haven't slowed down to imagine the experience of what it must be like, then they can ring kind of hollow. Do you think?
Yeah, I think yes and no. I mean, I think there is. I mean, there's only so far I can go in understanding what that must be like. Like, I feel limited in that, and that's I've had a lot of conversations with different looking people. I've read a lot of books. I feel like I've done as about as much as I can, but like at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know what that's like. I can imagine, and but I do think I can understand what it's like to be scared. I can understand what it's like to be terrified. I can understand what it's like to be really, really angry, or to feel betrayed.
Yeah, I don't mean to, but I'm thinking about people listening, that are the ones that are way more vulnerable than we are. And so when you say, I know what it's like to be terrified, if I can push a little bit, it's like, do you know what it's like to be terrified? And I mean that with love, and also for ourselves, for Anne and myself too. That one of the things, just a quick note, is that I feel like there's been huge empathy development because the paranoia and some of the new feelings that we're having, that we've just been in this bliss state of feeling safe inappropriately, right? Just being disconnected from these feelings that are really real. But so, yeah, what about that? Like, have you felt terror
I mean,
before?
that's actually a really good question. I mean, I have no idea what it's like to have somebody come into the bathroom, and question what I've got going on down there. Like I don't know what that's like. I know people who know what that's like. And I guess that's what I would use to kind of connect with that. I mean, there's been times where I've been scared. There's been times where I've been scared of other people. I've never been hunted, which that hurt me to say that word.
It's a good word. It's the right word.
So yes and no. As I think in this context, I think it's also just like we're doing the best we can, and I'll try to connect with whatever I can try to connect with, but that's my limitation.
I think acknowledging that for all of us, like we have such limitations in all of our privilege. And I think you're right. We can't really have empathy, but we haven't experienced or really feel it on the deepest level. I guess we could add though, what is that like for you? If we jump to the quickness of it's going to be fine, we can do this, it's what's it like for you to imagine that? Like to take a moment to dive a little bit deeper in and to want to know what the threat is. What is that like to be, feeling like somebody is going to be directing over you in a way that's hurtful and demeaning? Like, what must that be like, And I like what you said earlier, Sue, it is such empathy development. Just think how much we have, as white individuals, we've been blissfully unaware and horrifically unaware. And even we said the word surprise, like there's many people in this country that are not surprised by what just happened as much as as we are, right? Like I just didn't think it could happen. And I think one of the things that's really helped me in this journey is like really realizing how far we have to go in this country, and that we can blow our ignorance out of the water, that we are still able to to support it. Again, just somebody that may continue to promote statements that are so openly racist or gendered. But I also know that some people are supporting that, not because they believe in that, but they believe that we need something different for much of the country, and they've been ignored. And if we get derogatory about assuming that anybody votes over there believes these comments, I think that's what's so important, is we need to be really unifying around what values we want to live in this country and breathe in this country, and not around red and blue. And one part of the world thinks, derogatory and the other doesn't. It's like really having these expectations that these conversations among partners and among all of us need to be more complex and caring and connecting.
Yeah, because one of the reasons that we're doing this episode is for those folks that, you might have a different economic view and be upset or even offended by the reaction that you're getting because of your vote. Well, this is the hope that, like, let us try to bridge that divide a little bit and help you understand. Just two really quick things. One is the example of what we should be doing is I wanted to brag on you, Ann Kelly, that morning I was not regulated. And in that particular moment, from a nervous system perspective, it was fight, and I was ready to blow things down, and I was not holding it in. And it makes me a little teary to think about it. But what you did for me, because sometimes that can be scary to have somebody in that kind of rage. And what you did is you didn't try to tamp me down or say I was crazy or no, we're not going to do that. You just you were just there. And that's what we're talking about. It's like being, and that's a big thing to be able to do in the face of big feelings, because you're having to regulate yourself to stay in and then let me go through my process. And my body just did what it needed to do. And I didn't stay in that state, partly because I had the right holding and I was able to move through it. Which just brings me to one other quick point. It's like, why was I that terrified? And this is another point of what we're trying to do here to help explain it, is that for those of us, in my case, well, just anybody who's had trauma, has been not believed, has been demeaned, has been ignored, has been the object of humiliation, of abuse. This is such a painful, painful experience of, like, here's our large family. There's a known convicted perpetrator at the head of the family. And so, there's a lot of, like, if you think of us as, like, because he's in a paternal role. So people are pointing and saying, can't you see? Can't you see? Don't that. And to have that, to be seen through, it's absolutely, I can promise you, if you think of the Me Too movement and how many people have had an experience like this, that, if you're wondering why people are freaking out, that is stored in our bodies. And so it's happening again. And there's a part of our brain that can't tell the difference. And it really feels that horrible. And so that's the kind of just volcanoes of feelings that are happening. And in a way, and we won't know what this particular thing in that particular person is that's being activated, but I can promise you their body doesn't lie. It is true. It is real. And if instead of being afraid of it or trying to plug the volcano, there is really an opportunity here to understand and to heal.
And honestly, I'm going to just finish that story because that was that morning, and it was devastating. And, and
for us, again,
for us, right, but not for everybody.
That
there's some people that were celebrating because they need something from this administration that they're not getting, right? Like, again, not everyone that voted for this administration was voting because they're going, yay, let's squash everybody that's a woman or Black or gay. However, it does feel that way at times. And in our more activated state, it's very easy to believe anybody that pushed that button had that intent and that meaning. So you start to think 50-something% of your country is okay with having somebody like that continue to abuse you. It feels very betrayal.
50% of your country are a threat.
Yes.
Over 50%.
Well, 74% of men think it's fine, So 69% of women. So if we start
white women and white men.
White women, thank you. It was white women, white men. It was not Black women and Black men. And we are all, every one of us, are activated by the media, activated by rhetoric. I mean, just to read the playbook and how it moved from one spot to the next was just enlightening, amazing, and all the ways we've all missed. But I was going to say something really positive about you. So let me get back to that. But it was true. And it gets back to what the reason the things that you're saying, Michael, are so important about listening, because that morning she was ready to give up. Just done, we're out of here. All the 5 F's probably got hit. I was doing by the end some more flopping than anything. But by the end of the day, we are generating. Sue is we're going to have a meeting. We're going to reach out. And it's not about which side. It's people's nervous system need holding. And by the end, the feeling of agency came. And I don't think that could happen if we can't first feel our pain, feel our experience, and be supported in our experience, so that then we can get to that part of, okay, what's next? And if we rush it for ourselves too, right? Just, oh, I'm not supposed to feel this way, I need to get up and just jump into business and take care of the podcast. That wouldn't have been helpful. Like we needed to go through
Yeah,
our
because we kind of
own.
drag it along with us.
Yeah.
We might dissociate it for a minute, but we're going to bring it right with us to the next moment.
Very much so. But it is a time, to your point, Michael, it is a time that we are missing a moment of closeness with our people in our relationships, as well as the other part of our country, which is hard to feel right now. If we stay in that dismissive, you're fine, or everybody's horrible if you did this, like if we stay in that kind of activation, our bodies are going to remain in threat. And we're going to miss this chance for trying to heal and connect, which is kind of a hard thing to imagine at this moment to even suggest. But I think that's what you were saying earlier. It's like you're talking about this to these men to say, go home and connect, because that is the opportunity to really hold a different perspective and to connect to your spouse about something that's been really painful and why this is hard.
Right. And some of that, I don't think y'all have used this word, but like, I mean, just the idea of patience. I mean, one, earlier I was joking and said, like, it's only been 36 hours. It truly feels like it's been a year already, um, you know, but it's only been 36 hours. And there's no need. There's no need to rush this. There's no need to rush, you know, somebody feeling or acting differently about this. You know, I think just as a partner, being able to just breathe, you know, and allow somebody who you may really, really care about, they may be the most important person in the world to you, but to allow them to be in distress, not in an ignoring way, but in sitting in it with them, I think is just, there's just so much opportunity for that right now.
Yeah, and you're going back to the nervous system, that this idea of patience, we call it, playing the long game. Because when we're activated, there's urgency. And so this is an example of like, okay, let's move out of urgency as a way of regulating. But I want to say, what about couples or triples or coworkers that they're not having a compassionate person that just doesn't understand, but there really is this divide, because this is happening a lot. So if we could talk for a minute about, okay, we've got your Trump voter and your Harris voter. And I know some of you are smiling and nodding right now, because I know that is the case. And it's difficult on both sides, right? So for the Harris voter, there's just tons of dysregulation looking that direction, and the same in reverse. So this is really difficult, especially 36 hours out. But can we massage that a little bit and try to provide some air and some hope there? Or is it, or not?
Oh my God.
In our show notes, you'll find the divorced person.
Well, I am thinking also just of the divided couple and the divided family, the cousins, these close relationships that now it becomes almost intolerable, the thought of reconnecting with these people. And we've run a real risk, like we did before under this same president. I was going to say a similar administration, but I think all the other administration is not coming back. But this administration coming in, like, I guess there's this feeling for the next 4 years that if we don't learn to have patience and compassion and connection, which doesn't mean we're not saying act, be angry, and challenge, but if we don't, we're going to see more and more family divisions. And these aren't just like small family divisions. These are like, could be permanent family divisions if we can't learn to tolerate the kind of discomfort that we experience with these different positions. And that's a tall order. It's a tall order for me.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a good answer. I think particularly if it's within the context of someone not being safe, I think that's a tall order to ask somebody to stay in that.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that that's the first association, that it's unsafe, which is what we're saying that our body is saying. But let's just keep playing with this out. This is somebody that's been married a long time. And then now you find out that they voted the other way, or that has been your parent for a long time and you've had a lifelong relationship with them.
And you've been different political divides.
And you've had in political divides your whole life. But now there's something about this one that has a fire to it. And one thought, and the thought I had was what we said earlier about, and what you said, that just because you pulled the red lever doesn't mean that you're actually trying to, discriminate against trans kids, and that you are interested in, taking away abortion rights. And so I think that maybe one of the, let's get a spoke in this wheel of this panic and this paranoia would be, okay, but your person that you're talking about, that you loved just as, you had a relationship with until you saw the sign in their yard, you had this long relationship, and that doesn't go away. And can we come to a place of curiosity about like what for them was their motivation, and can we make it safe for them to talk so that then they can be more impressionable from us, but also can they come to hold our position and understand what we're upset about too. But I think it has to start with that regulation.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. Is it requires something of both parties. Like there has to be that acknowledgement. There has to be that ability to say, like, "Hey, I see it." I guess that's where I was going earlier when I was saying, like, you can't expect somebody to be connected with somebody who's not safe to them. I think part of being a safe person is being able to say, like, "Hey, I understand, that maybe what I did, who I voted for, whatever, I know that means something to you."
And I care about how it makes you feel.
Right. And so I think that has to be a component, of it being safe enough to stay in. Sure, like, I don't, y'all probably all, I think this was probably all over the place pre-election, but this kind of, I think it was kind of snarky, kind of memes about, like, I can agree to disagree, and that's great. I mean, that may be part of this. But I think if it's not done in a way that acknowledges the other person, that's not what that means. You're missing the mark.
I think that is so true, Michael. I really appreciate you saying that, because that is a good way to look about safety, in threat, is if you can't actually more deeply see how your choices are impacting one another, right? If I'll throw myself under the bus, if I'm so focused, which I have been, on race and gender and all these other things as being harmful in this decision, but if the person I'm talking about follows those, believes in those, but can't pay for something and can't afford their rent and are suffering in the middle part of the country, and I might disagree about what the answer to that is, right? Like, we may disagree on that, but if I can't connect to them that their vote had to do with their pain and their need to feed their family, right? And that they happen to believe, right? We may disagree on who might have helped them more with that, but if their vote is their belief around that, then taking that in is really important. But it doesn't also disregard the threat that activates in you, right? Like, it's not so easy. We can't kumbaya it. Oh, and like, I see that. I see, because that decision still activates a threat in us. So it really is patience and tolerance of that threat. But it comes back to really learning to have deeper, more secure conversations. But both people have to see the other side and be willing to see. And that is not easy. It sure hadn't been easy this week for me. I'll tell you that. It's getting easier, but boy, it hasn't been.
Yeah. And I think it's important just to acknowledge, like, it's way easier to have this conversation, than to actually do this stuff. Like, it is so hard. And I can sit there and, I mean, this conversation started yesterday while we were texting back and forth, and I was like, I've thrown therapy out the window. I'm just telling people what to do, but it's actually true. But because I think, I think some of the guys, and it's funny, I actually reached out to some of my guys and said like, hey, I may be like anonymously talking about y'all tomorrow. I hope that's okay. And they all said it was okay. So, but I think there are times where like, no, you just need to know what to say, and like hope that the feeling catches up later, because it's really, really hard to get to where we're talking about.
So just for those that are listening, what are those things to say? Like, even if you aren't feeling it yet as a act and it will follow, let's just be really concrete.
Oh, I think anything that like leads you in is forward facing, is I'm moving towards you, any of those kinds of things. I mean, it could, there's 100 things of just kind of like, I'm so sorry. How about that? Start there.
Oh, that's a good one.
Like that's super easy and accessible.
Yeah, and you can feel that. You are sorry that they're in distress, right?
And come here. Let me hold you while you tell me about this.
Right. Yeah. Some nice physical touch that's not foreplay. It's just, let me just sit here with you. And, it requires somebody to be able to like kind of deal with their own discomfort with their partner being in distress. And like the two of y'all yesterday, I don't know how you were able to do that, Anne, but like you were able to just be there.
I'm not always able to do that.
I know. Nobody is, but
nobody is.
That's why you're getting the gold star today.
Exactly.
Well, I think it kind of comes down, I mean, not to use our lingo, but it's why we started talking this way to begin with. It's like, how do you find your most secure relating self first? And that is to because if you're like, it's going to be fine, you're not actually regulating your partner, or you're not regulating your cousin to say, you have no idea, that's the stupidest decision. We can think that and we can feel that you did that, and now look what's happened, right? Like, we can get in a blame game very easily in this situation. But if we don't know what is threatening us and get that in a way to say, how do I first put on my own oxygen mask to say, okay, this conversation is really hard, but I am sorry. Or, man, you and I have been close in this family our whole lives. And this, I think a temporal moment is also, we have been close our whole lives. Your decision is very painful to me, and I'm really having a hard time getting that organized right now. So I don't know that we can talk about politics, And another thing is to ask, like, if you know somebody, this happens, if you know somebody is really pained when you start to make casual comments and you're poking them, it's to be aware that you're feeling aggression and you're actually promoting it in somebody else by making comments, by saying you candy ass this, or you're free, like whatever, right? You're actually regulating your own discomfort. You're not actually solving any problem, and you're creating more division. So just being able to get a hold of that and go, if somebody really, really gets activated by your comments, I'm not saying shut up. That is not the message, but be aware and be intentional. And if you are I'm being aggressive, you better acknowledge it to yourself instead of like, oh, I'm making aggressive comments, but you're just an overreactor.
And an antidote even is, I love everything that you're saying, but then also, if you can get there, one of the things I think that would help would be to speak out against stuff like name calling and intentional humiliation and sarcasm and making fun of people, that whole disgusting, again, intentional humiliation. That, sure, vote for your guy and say, he's a leader, he's an adult. Not just him, anybody. I'm saying anybody in a leadership position. That is not a secure state. By the time you're name calling and sticking your tongue out and making fun of somebody, you are in an insecure state. You're in a dysregulated, immature, not secure state. And if more people can call that out, don't change your politics, fine. But that part, you really want to follow somebody that is acting like a kindergartner, you know what I mean? And I mean that about neurologically, that we want to, we want our leaders to be in a secure state themselves, because they are the ones that are protecting us. And that part of what makes it scary is if when we see someone that is dysregulated and we can feel it, that is not safe when somebody is, name calling does not convey safety, then that is also activating. So if you're on the other side, you want to hold your vote, you stand up for your person, but you could also stand up for like, that part is wrong. I don't like that. That part's wrong. And when my friends say it, I'm going to stop them. You can hold your policy. That's fine, but be on the team of let's use our whole minds. Let's use our whole vocabulary. Let's use our ears and listen and respond. And that would go a long way, I think.
Because that really gets us out of that black and white, right? If you voted this way, it means this. It means this is what you believe, and this is the elite, or this is the ignorant, or whatever we want to say. And I think that's part of want to slow it down, get really slow, and let's get out of the one issue like Harris and Trump. Let's get out of that issue. I mean, that's been decided, but the issues that are activating us still exist. So those don't go away. And so if you're people, there's going to be certain people that are just not going to care about the other parts of the continuum. There is going to be, but the truth is that is a smaller amount than what media is making us believe. And so it's larger actually than I wish to believe before. So I'm getting out of my ignorance, but where is the common ground that we could start securely relating? And if you believe, we really needed this because we needed somebody who was going to take care of the little guy, then great, support the little guy no matter which side you're on. I don't mean to say the little guy. What am I meaning to say?
Well, you're talking about people that are, you're right. We have this global majority that we call minorities that are not actually minorities, right? That we, the people that are not in the power over stance, disenfranchised, right? Marginalized communities. Yeah.
Well, are those individuals, I was thinking like individual farms was what I really meant. I wasn't, I was meaning like the individual farmer
small
who's
business.
suffering, these small businesses that are suffering, and they believe this will help them. Okay, if they believe this is helping them, let's not do a gotcha. It's really easy to go, wow, I've gotcha. But let's stay in the thing like, okay, but can you also support me in these positions across the aisle? Don't just stay over there. So if you really are saying this is why you voted here, but you believe in equal women's rights, or you believe in non-racist, then you need to join me over here as well. Like there's an and instead of an or. If we're in an or, we're in a threatened position.
Yeah, I think an and versus an or is a good thing. I'm just aware of time, and you had a pretty hard deadline. So, Michael, are there any final thoughts for our listeners?
I don't know. Is it cheesy just to say like, just love on each other? I think yesterday I was very confident. I think we connected yesterday. Like I was just like sending like little heart emojis to people that I was thinking of, but like I assumed that the receiving end of that, like y'all knew what that was about, and so it doesn't even have to be anything big, in fact, it's probably more the small things, the accessible things that we can all be doing, just to be there for people that really need it.
I see you, and I know you're hurting signs.
Yeah.
And that's even really important for that cousin that, you is hurting, even though y'all disagree, like saying I care, and it your pain matters to me.
So I have another idea, which is there's a book and that is not what this is about, but it is true. We spent years working on secure relating, holding your own in an insecure world. So if you are still with us and have not checked out that book, securerelatingbook.com is where you can find it. It's highly, highly critically acclaimed and covers so much of the neurobiology and secure relating. And then also Anne and I have launched, as of tomorrow, again, depending on when you're listening to this, just our own effort of like gathering people for secure relating. You can find that on our events page at therapistsuncensored.com. So whenever you're listening to this, you could check there and see what might be going on to gather and to be
tomorrow. The meeting was November 8th, 2024. So if you happen to be listening to this on November 8th when we put this out, then great. And if you want to join us. But I think what you're saying also, if it's later, there might be other events. So check them out. Thank you so much, Michael. It was really fun to sit here and talk with you. You've been a big part of our lives, and your heart's meant a lot. And your wisdom is always there.
It's good to see your faces.
All right. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you around the bend.
Therapist Uncensored is Ann Kelly and Sue Marriott. This podcast is edited by Jack Anderson.